Hi, I'm coming to you on behalf of Wisconsin NORML, NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, and also IMLE. Is my medicine legal yet? IMMLY. They are both advocates for medical marijuana to be legalized in the state of Wisconsin. There are two forms of legislature to talk about. The 2017 Senate Bill 119. Current law places various restrictions on the possessions, manufacture, and delivery of controlled substances. One of those substances is tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, which is currently placed in the most restrictive category of controlled substances, which means it may not be prescribed for medical use and may be manufactured and possessed only for particular purposes such as research under special permits. The bill requires the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection to issue licenses that authorize the growing and processing of industrial hemp. The bill also provides that DATCP, or an institution of higher education, may establish an agricultural pilot program to study industrial hemp and to grow hemp for this purpose. The bill also creates an exemption from the controlled substances laws for growing, processing, or possessing industrial hemp in conformity with a license issued by DATCP. The bill does not change federal law. Growing and possessing the plant cannabis is generally prohibited by federal law, but the 2014 Federal Farm Bill 7 U.S.C. 5940 authorizes a state agricultural department or an institution of higher education to grow industrial hemp for research purposes. If the state's laws allow the growing of industrial hemp by a state agriculture agency or institute of higher education. The other bill is the 2013 Wisconsin Act of 267, which now states tetrahydrocannabinols, commonly known as THC, in any form, including tetrahydrocannabinols contained in marijuana, obtained from marijuana, or chemically synthesized, except the tetrahydrocannabinols do not include cannabidiol, in a form without a psychoactive effect that is dispensed or documented as provided. We would like the statute to create, the new one to be created, saying, upon the request of any physician, the Controlled Substances Board shall aid the physician in applying for and processing an investigational drug permit for cannabidiol as treatment for a seizure disorder. If the FDA issues an investigational drug permit, the Controlled Substances Board shall approve which pharmacies and physicians may dispense cannabidiol to patients. A pharmacy or physician approved under 961.34 may dispense cannabidiol in a form without a psychoactive effect as a treatment for a seizure disorder, or any physician may provide an individual with a hard copy of a letter or other official documentation stating that the individual possesses cannabidiol to treat a seizure disorder if the cannabidiol is in the form without a psychoactive effect. Melissa Sargent, a state representative, filed a bill to legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana for adult use. It would also create a medical program for seriously ill patients in Wisconsin and reduce the penalty for possessing under 10 grams of marijuana from up to 6 months in jail and or a fine of $1,000 to a $100 civil fine. The police chief, Mike Koval, agrees with legalizing marijuana, but says the drug should be regulated and taxed, with revenues used to fund treatment programs for harder drugs. The majority of Wisconsinites agree with legalizing marijuana but want it to be regulated the same as alcohol. If the bill is passed, it would allow adults 21 or older to legally possess marijuana for any purposes. Wisconsin residents would be allowed to have up to half an ounce of marijuana, and out-of-state visitors would be allowed up to a quarter ounce. Legalization proposal establishes a system of state-regulated marijuana outlets, which retail marijuana sales subject to 25% sales tax. Marijuana edibles would not be allowed for sale for recreational use, and bans the recreational marijuana sales via mail, telephone, or the internet. Wisconsin residents would also be allowed to grow up to 12 cannabis plants in their homes. The bill would also establish a medical marijuana program in Wisconsin, which would be overseen by the Department of Health Services. Under the medical marijuana proposal, patients or their parents, if the patient is under 18, suffering from debilitating medical conditions or treatments, would be allowed to buy medical marijuana with the identification card from DHS. There are no specific qualifications, conditions for the medical marijuana program. It would be up to the patient's physicians to determine if medical marijuana is an appropriate treatment option. There are people who are against it. One of them is the Attorney General for the state of Wisconsin. He says he won't agree with it until the AMA and the FDA are agree that it is reasonable and sensible to use marijuana for medical purposes. Another Dr. Baumrucker did his own research on medical marijuana, deciding that it should be tested further and eventually legalized. But the Supreme Court denies the use because there is no justification for marijuana in medicine. Another group of authors, Athy, Boyd, and Cohen, did a study on the reflections of Becker's trilogy, Learning Techniques, Experience Effects, and Perceiving Those Effects of Enjoyable Use of Marijuana. Found basically no difference between that in people who smoked marijuana for pleasure and those who used it for medical purposes. They both felt the same feelings and did it for the same reasons. We are advocating for the legalization of medical marijuana because it eases pain, nausea, loss of appetite from those suffering from cancers and HIV. It may cut down on seizures with people who suffer from epilepsy and muscular sclerosis. Symptoms such as muscle stiffness, spasms, pain, and frequent urinating. In general, the effects of marijuana aren't too bad. They actually cause some mild euphoria, increased sense of well-being. They give you encouragement, more outgoing, expressive in your mannerisms. Or it helps you relax, relieves you from anxiety, alterations in perception of time, and hallucinations may occur also. But the very negative effects are impairments in cognitive functioning, impairments in learning, loss of memory, impairments of your motor control and reaction time. You may be depressed, have panic attacks, and mild paranoia. On the other hand, Dr. Sanjay Gupta says that studies have shown that only about 9% of people develop an addiction, and most of the time it is a psychological addiction and not a physical addiction. and that he dispels the myths about marijuana and says it is safer than many of the narcotic pills that doctors prescribe to patients today. In conclusion, there is a cannabis oil, which is a cannabidiol CBD. It is pure CBD oil. It is available in capsules and oil drops, which are available to put in your food or your coffee. And they have no side effects, and they're 100% natural, and they do not need a prescription, and they are legal in all 50 states. We want Wisconsin to join that company and be able to use medical marijuana to ease our pain. Help us with this fight. Thank you for listening. Good evening.